Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a pretty startling analysis that looks back at the year 2025, not as some kind of prediction, but as if it's already a done deal, a finished chapter of history with some unprecedented consequences.
You see, the document we're breaking down today frames that entire year around this one single question. It's arguing that 2025 wasn't just another year in politics. Oh no, it was this radical experiment. What really happens when enormous private wealth gets to take direct control of public power?
And this quote right here, this is basically the core argument of the whole analysis. The point it's making is that 2025 wasn't about reform or making things better. It was about a fundamental teardown of American governance. So let's break down how the source claims this all went down.
Okay, so to really get a handle on what this document is saying about 2025, it first points to two, let's say, highly symbolic moments. It claims these two events really set the stage for everything that came after, establishing this new, aggressive way of thinking about governance.
It all kicks off on January 20th. The document describes Musk giving what it calls a Roman salute right there at the inauguration. Then just a month later, he shows up at the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, waving a running chainsaw. Now, according to the source, these weren't just random bizarre acts. They were calculated performances. And together, they created what the analysis calls the Chainsaw Doctrine, a visual promise of a brutal, not surgical, approach to changing the government.
Now here's where we get to the nuts and bolts of this whole experiment. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. The source argues DOGE wasn't a real department at all. It was more like a clever legal workaround, a temporary organization created by executive order. And why? To install an unelected official with a ton of power, all while sidestepping the usual checks and balances like Senate confirmation and conflict of interest laws.
And then the analysis gets into how this shadow cabinet was actually staffed. First, Musk gets classified as a special government employee. According to the source, this was a crucial move that let him get around ethics laws and not have to sell off his private company assets. Then the document claims experts were pretty much ignored. Instead, young loyalists got the jobs. And the document highlights this one really shocking example. A 19-year-old, professionally known as Big Balls, was put in a senior role overseeing the incredibly sensitive data from millions of Americans at the Office of Personnel Management and the Social Security Administration.
Okay, so the stage is set. DOGE is in place. And now the document shifts its focus to the fallout, what it claims were the immediate and really devastating consequences of this new drive for efficiency, both here in the US and all around the world.
So, who was the first target according to this analysis? Well, it was the federal workforce itself. An ultimatum, which the document calls the fork in the road, was given to all 2 million federal employees. And the choice was pretty stark. You either abandon your telework agreements and come back to the office full-time starting right now, or you take a 6-month severance package and resign.
And the result? A massive exodus. About 154,000 civil servants, many of them senior experts and scientists, took that buyout. That's the largest peacetime reduction of the federal workforce on record. But here's the real kicker that the source points out. The massive cost of paying all these buyouts actually made government spending spike, which completely contradicted the whole mission of efficiency.
And with all that expertise gone, the document claims things started to go haywire and fast. Citing a whistleblower report, the analysis claims that inexperienced DOGE staff, including that 19-year-old advisor, uploaded the unredacted Social Security numbers of 300 million Americans to an unsecured cloud server. We're talking about exposing basically the entire population to identity theft.
And while all this was happening at home, the analysis points to this huge humanitarian disaster unfolding overseas. It reports that DOGE started a near total freeze on funding for the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. This cut off life-saving food aid and medicine, and models cited in the report estimated this led to over 300,000 preventable deaths globally just by the middle of the year.
So this table from the document really sums up the domestic impact it's claiming. And if you look at it, on every key metric, workforce size, spending, security, and morale, the net result was negative. The whole pursuit of efficiency, the document argues, led directly to institutional collapse.
But according to the analysis, this chaos wasn't just random. It wasn't the end goal. The document argues it was all building toward a massive financial payday.
And this is where the contrast really becomes stark, according to the source. On one hand, you have programs getting the axe, things like humanitarian relief and civil service jobs. And on the other hand, the administration was pushing for a massive new spending project.
a space-based missile defense system called the Golden Dome.
And the scale of this thing, it was just staggering. As this chart from the analysis shows, the cost estimates were all over the place. The White House said it would cost $175 billion, but independent estimates from groups like the American Enterprise Institute came back with a jaw-dropping price tag of $3.6 trillion over 2 decades. So the source isn't just saying this was, bad policy. It's arguing it was something else entirely. In the document's own words, it was a circular economy of graft.
Okay, so here's how the document lays out this alleged conflict of interest. As the head of DOGE, Musk is advising the government to slash all these programs. Then, his own private company, SpaceX, is perfectly positioned to get the massive contracts created by this new Golden Dome policy, starting with a $2 billion deal. So, in effect, his public role was creating a giant market for his private company. And all of this leads us to the final and maybe the most troubling argument in this entire analysis. It argues that despite the chaos, the data breaches, and what it calls blatant conflicts of interest, the entire system of accountability just failed. So, by November, it looks like the legal system finally caught up. A federal judge steps in, rules that DOG's operations were unconstitutional, and the whole organization has to be disbanded. But here's the thing. While the experiment itself was over, the analysis claims its architects suffered 0 personal repercussions. None.
So the document's conclusion is pretty stark. Total impunity. Let's just tick through the list. Despite what it says were clear violations of the Privacy Act and an unconstitutional shutdown of a federal agency, no criminal charges were filed. Financially, he came out of the year even wealthier, with his company SpaceX now set up to get decades of revenue from the Golden Dome project. And politically, his power as a kingmaker was completely intact.
And that brings us to this final quote, which really just delivers the source material's gut punch of a verdict. It's the ultimate summary of a year where, according to this document, an individual broke the government, endangered the population, and profited from it all. For the richest man in the world, there is no such thing as a consequence.
And that's where this analysis leaves us, not with some neat little bow tied on top, but with a really provocative and frankly unsettling question for our future. If extreme wealth can put a person beyond the reach of the law and accountability, what does that mean for the very idea of a democracy?